Hi there, welcome back to the Crone Zone and the foundation course in learning tarot. And just as quickly, we're on to number 7. So please, from the Major Arcana, take the Chariot, 7 of Swords, 7 of Wands, 7 of Cups, and 7 of Pentacles. And let's begin. So the first 7 cards of the Major Arcana are foundational. They are about the establishment of our ego persona, our personality, if you like, as it's been formed by our experiences in society, our foundational experiences there. So the first 7 cards of the deck really go together. And it's quite useful to see them as a developmental block. And thereafter, we're into another phase of development. I will discuss this more later. With the 6s, we saw that for the first time we're saying I. And with the 7s, we're moving that on to say I can and I will. And so we're moving into our actions, the things that we do in the world. The rubber is hitting the road. So this is the point at which we act outside of the parental nest. It's Dick Whittington, if you like, setting off to seek his fortune in London. It's that kind of energy. We need to test our legs. Let's just go back over the key words so far for the numbers because they're very helpful. So number 1, we had beginnings. Number 2, we had duality. 3 was growth. 4 was structure. 5, we come into conflict. 6 is choice. And 7 is challenge. That's the word for the Chariot, challenge. Because it's through challenge that we develop a sense of who we are. Whatever the challenges are, in whatever sphere of life they are, if we set ourselves a goal and then we accomplish it, from that we gain confidence. Not only that, from that we test and strengthen our will. So we won't look straight away at the cards, just a few words more. The astrological sign associated with the Chariot is Cancer. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Cancer is a cardinal sign, so it's an initiating energy. It likes to get things going, as all the cardinal signs do. Initiate action, loves goals, as do all the cardinal signs. Another aspect of Cancer is that it's extremely tenacious. This is a sign that quietly will hang on in there and get something completed. Very tenacious sign. So I think now we can look a little more deeply at the card itself, the Chariot. So let's get on with that. Let's take a look at this card more closely. The young charioteer is leaving the city, striking out alone. The river flows behind him. And rather like Cancer the crab, the sign that I've said associated with the card, he's not sheltered by the buildings behind. He takes his own structure with him, the chariot canopied with stars. Even with a cursory glance, we can see that this will not be an easy vehicle to move. I mean, it appears to be made of stone. And then let's look at the 2 strange creatures pulling the chariot. They're sphinxes, one black and one white. This reminds me of the idea of the charioteer in ancient Greece. And Socrates speaks of the charioteer representing the intellect has two horses, one black and one white. One represents rational or moral impulse, while the other horse represents the irrational. And it's the job of the charioteer to control both horses, to rein them in so that their force is equal and the chariot moves forward smoothly. Well, we don't have horses here, we have sphinxes. And again, one black, one white. One day, one night, one masculine, one feminine, one the reason, one the intuition. And it seems that our charioteer must rein in these two strange beasts in order for the chariot to go forward properly. It's interesting to note that there are no reins attached to the animals. And what the charioteer does have in his hand is a wand. And this symbolises his will, because it's his will which is driving the chariot forward. It's the chariot of our life, if you like, driven by the will. You can see that the charioteer wears the crescent moon upon each shoulder. This is another reference to the sign of Cancer, which is ruled by the moon, and also is associated with intuition, as is the river behind the chariot. And we remember that this flows from the high priestess. And guess what? She herself is, of course, as we saw earlier, associated with the moon. So this card in a reading is about walking your talk, getting into action, getting going, getting things underway, getting things launched, rolling forward, moving forward in a dynamic way. Also in readings, I have to tell you, because it's quite funny, but sometimes the tarot can be very playful and literal. And just sometimes it will indicate issues with cars. That can be breakdowns of cars or new cars or the things concerning cars and vehicles of all kinds. Sometimes the tarot, it can be incredibly literal like that. It was just to throw that in so you bear it in mind. But we mustn't grind people down in our ambitions and our drive and our confidence. You know, we mustn't crush people beneath those chariot wheels. That is not the idea. You know, we need to move forward with some moral compass. And another aspect of the seven, the number seven, is that it's about reassessment and reflection. So it also involves us in times when we pause in the action. We check we've got those two sphinxes in harmony. We check that we're going forward in the right way. We want to reach the stars above the canopy, not have for success at any cost. And the ultimate success with the number seven is spiritual development. That's where seven's going in the long run. So as we set out in our chariot, we're on baby steps towards that. So it's not just moving that matters. It's the mode within which we move that matters. And we can explore those modes now by looking at the sevens from the Minor Arcana. I've given the key word for the chariot as challenge, and by which I mean those things we set out to do and the growth we gain from their accomplishment. Yet we are on an even number here, so reflection and re-evaluation will also come into the mix. The aim is to gain wisdom, not merely knowledge. The aim is to gain wisdom, not merely knowledge. In meeting life and getting things done, the mode of doing so is important, especially if our ultimate aim is spiritual growth. Let's look how these energies express through the sevens from the Minor Arcana, which we can see here below the Chariot. The Seven of Swords shows a stealthy figure. Sneaking off with the swords he appears to have stolen, leaving the camp he's taken them from, rather like a thief in the night. This card can show strategic behaviour, sometimes the need to sidestep rather than to meet challenges head on, which can be valid. It can be evasion of various kinds and sometimes deception. And certainly on the face of it, it's not always a very honourable way of meeting a challenge. We know that discretion can be the better part of valour, but we can also see this as low cunning. Will it pay off to meet challenges in this way? Well, maybe, or perhaps not. We wonder if the group of figures in the distance have not spotted him and whether he will be caught out. Let's remember, though, that this is swords, so we could be looking at sophistry in arguments or subtle derailing or sidestepping of an argument. Yeah, it can be a tricky energy. So, in a complete contrast to the rather dodgy character in the Seven of Swords, this character is taking a rigorous defence of a position that he has or a belief that he has, and he's defending that in a forthright and open way. There's a blue sky behind the figure, clear blue sky. He is giving his all to the fight. And we notice this because he hasn't even got the time to wear shoes which match. And he is taking the moral high ground here. Notice he is up high above the ones that come to attack him. One against many there. And yet we know he's utterly determined to win. And we feel that he will win. This is the true will and determination of the Chariot and courage. And remember, part of testing our will is to develop our courage to be ourselves, to be authentic, to be true to what we value. So, whilst this is far from a restful position to be in, obviously it's incredibly active and it's hard work for sure. This is the good fight. So when the card shows up in a reading, it is saying that whether we're standing our ground, and we absolutely need to do so. Significantly, and I'd contrast this with that previous card of the Five of Swords, this card isn't about attack. This is not an aggressive energy. It is about defence and our absolute right and need to defend those things that we value and ourselves. So wands, as we know, are about the will. And here the will is being tested and appears to be coming out on top, although the fight is not yet won completely. I think of building castles in the air when I see this card, as whilst it can speak to a rich imagination, it can also be a card indicating airy illusions and fantasy. That state of being bedevilled by too many choices and not knowing what to focus on or which to pursue. Notice that the cups float in a grey and rather sinister cloud, and that figure emerging from the central cup is completely shrouded looks a little bit dodgy. There could be something very unexpected and unpleasant there. So the card begs the question, how can we harness will and move forward if we're beguiled by pie in the sky, as it were? Notice how dark the figure is in the foreground and how he seems mesmerised by the display of all the things on offer. So this card can really be a signal to ground yourself, to come down to earth, to get a focus, get a grip. The 7, the Chariot energy, is about getting things going. Now, imagination is a splendid thing and it can lay the tracks for the reality train to ride. But the message here is to ensure something really is manifesting in reality. Well, clearly the character in the 7 of Pentacles has been working solidly to manifest something, unlike the previous character in the 6 of Cups. And the work of this individual is accruing a harvest, possibly a financial harvest, certainly something solid and measurable in the world. This card also shows another important aspect of the 7 energy, and that is evaluation and reflection, which actually is a vital part of moving that chariot forward. Remember, we have to keep a balance between those 2 sphinxes, but also we've got to know where we're going. We can't go blindly forward without assessing, reassessing, pausing now and again, taking stock, taking a check. So it's good to step back and assess how things are going. And that's exactly what this character is doing. The figure here looks quite wistful, rather as though the harvest of those pentacles is not all he hoped for yet. But he is on the right track for sure. And there can be a sense here of needing to wait a little longer for results and keep working. So like the charioteer, this character will need tenacity. For this reason, the card can indicate investing in long-term goals. Certainly, this character is in it for the long haul.